Hi, I'm Ronnie, and I'm glad to be able to share a little bit about my story and testimony to you. When I was a little guy, I was born into a family of drug addiction and alcoholism. And my first memories were of abuse, and they weren't nice. My mother was sitting on the concrete floor, and she got hit. That her head bounced off the concrete floor, and that's like the first memories that I lived with, and the drunken orgies and everything else that goes with that. And by the grace of God, the welfare removed myself and my sister from them and put us in a children's home, where I grew up fighting with 100 other kids for attention, for love, the basic things that each child should be getting at home. But you've got 100 broken kids fighting for the same thing. So I quickly learned that you get special attention when you get into trouble. And so I started getting into trouble a lot. And eventually I started manipulating and conning people into believing things just so I could be taken out, and I could get more special attention. And so my life of crime really started at a young age, where I started conning people and manipulating. And so by the time I was 10, I was smoking cigarettes. By the time I was 16, I was a drug addict. And that's when I had my first run-in with the law as well. Myself and two guys decided to break into the police canteen over an Easter weekend, and they had their rugby festival. And we stole all their booze. And they weren't very happy with us, and we ran away and eventually got caught. And I spent 3 weeks sleeping in the prison, in the police cells, waiting for a place to open up, in a place of safety. When I was there, I learned better skills from more hardened criminals, and these guys became my heroes. So much so that the desire in my heart was to go to prison, to be there where they were, because they made it sound like you felt wanted, you felt like you belonged. And so a life of crime started, and I eventually got sent to a reformatory school, and the whole idea of that is to get reformed, but it just got worse, and I ended up running away. I ended up sleeping on the streets and getting involved with gangs and drugs and all kinds of stuff. Eventually I handed myself over to the police because I was getting tired of living that life, running, always looking at, checking your back the whole time. And so I went to prison. And in prison, it's just another system. And so I tapped into the system, and I realized that if I made these guys believe that I wanted to be part of this gang, I'd be sort of like protected in a sense, I'll have some kind of backup. And then the one day in the exercise yard, the guys stabbed the warden, and they were beating guys up all over the place, and I was standing against the wall, not doing anything, and hoping that I'm not next. And the other wardens came running to the rescue of the guys here, and got all these gang members up against the wall. And a big guy, a big warden, he fills a double door, twice my size. He comes up to me and slaps me with that hand of a bear claw, and asks me a question: who stabbed the warden? And I looked at him, I thought, you just think I'm stupid, man. I'm going to tell you, no, it's that guy. And tomorrow I'm dead. So I said nothing. And I went back to my cell and, forgot about this whole thing. The next morning, one of the generals in the gang called me over, and he said to me, I hear you want to be initiated into the gang. So I said to him, yes. And he looked at me and he pointed out to a cleaner, and he said, you see that guy there? I said, yes. He said, we want you to take him out. And I don't think he meant a candlelit dinner. And so I asked him, when do you want me to do it? Now. And he said, no, we'll tell you when. And I turned around and I went back to my cell. And suddenly this has become real. It's not a game anymore. And when I went to sit on my bed, and I thought, I'm 20 years old. My life has brought me to this point where I have to make a decision. It's either that guy's life or mine. Either he's going to die, I'm going to die. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I'd rejected God. I wasn't interested in God. I was cutting myself to feel better. I was depressed. I was an angry, bitter person who feels like I was rejected. And I sat there on that bed. And 10 minutes after that conversation, the warden comes to my cell and he says to me, pack your stuff. You're being transferred to a rehab. And in that moment, right there, God showed up. And he revealed to me and showed to me that he is my Father. He loves me, he protects me, and he rescued me out of that situation. And so I went to a rehab, and then I went to a No-Port Christian Care Center, which is a hardcore rehab, and it's run by this pastor dude. And I thought, wow, like he's sitting on his books all day, he never gets out in the sun or anything. When I got there, this guy was huge. I mean, big tattoos and stuff, and he just looked at me and said, China, yeah, you don't tune me with this chorus, I tune you. And I just felt like I was at home. You know, this is it. And God cornered me. And on the 6th of November 1996, I gave my will and my life over to Christ. And I said, Lord, I'm not moving unless you move me. I'm not leaving this place unless you move me. And God has been doing that for me. He's been faithful and loving, and by His mercy and His grace, He's moved me from one place to another. And now I'm part of a team running a restoration center for guys that struggle with drug addiction and find themselves caught up in the clutches of voluntary slavery to false idols.
What would you say to someone who has any sort of struggle, whether it be drug addiction or maybe some other area that they are running to for escape?
Well, you know, I always say, what is addiction? And addiction is a worship disorder. So if you find yourself sort of like caught up in the life of addiction, understand that it is worship disorder. It means we've turned from God to creation. Our hearts are idol factories. And we create these idols and we bow down to them. So the only way to get out of that life is to return back to God. On this road map, this map of life, there's two roads, and one leads to the kingdom of God, the other leads to the kingdom of self. Now the kingdom of God is ruled by Christ. The kingdom of self is ruled by Satan. And not making a choice is making a choice. You're either in the kingdom of self or you're in the kingdom of God.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Ronnie.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.